Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. Across the country, farmers are hardly waiting to get into the field for the 2025 planting season, though some cold, wet weather has slowed them down in some places. We're going to kick off this week with Agronomy for Your Acres with our friends from Nutrient Ag Solutions. Joining us this week from Minnesota is Tyler Morgan. Tyler, thanks for talking with us.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for having me.
Fill us in. What does planting progress look like up in your neck of the woods?
Pretty minimal up here right now. We had a little window about a week ago there that some guys got started just to get planters going and make sure everything working, bugs out and stuff like that. But now we're kind of sitting and waiting on the weather. It seems like we're a day away, and then they put some rain in the forecast every time. So looking good next week, though.
All right. Well, that is good to hear. Of course, we do have some growers getting some crops in the ground, getting in early. It's wet. It's cold. What's your sense on how these early planted crops will do in this environment?
Tough to say. You know, we've been encouraging a lot of pushing the soybeans early, just because we can make up for stand loss with them and overcome any issues there. But some guys have been putting some corn in the ground. You know, we've pulled some cold germ tests and had some pretty good results on the cold germ. So we, felt comfortable with some guys getting started there too, just to get things in the ground to get going.
On that cold germination, what kind of conversations are you having with growers as they're looking into it?
We're trying to encourage guys to use it as a tool. You know, you don't need to completely reject a hybrid because it doesn't have a good cold germ. We just need to make decisions around which hybrids we're getting in the ground first based on cold germ results. We selected the hybrids that we like for their potential, for their placement, and everything like that. So we don't want to totally kick one to the curb just because it's got a poor cold germ test. We want to just use that as another tool to help us make decisions on when stuff's going in the ground here.
That makes sense. It's good to have all the tools in your toolbox before that season gets underway. Now, Tyler, what do you think growers ought to be doing right now while they're waiting to get into the field? What's some good advice you've got for them?
Just going through the preseason checklist again, make sure we got seed in the warehouse, kind of look over your plan for placement and planting orders and stuff like that. If you're doing your own spraying, get your chem in your shed and ready to go. And then just going through the monitors, making sure your planting recs or anything else on the tech side is ready to go. And just, making sure you're ready to roll when it finally breaks loose here.
That's what it's all about, making sure you're ready to roll. And of course, we'll be getting the seed in the ground. Spraying season, as you mentioned, will be here before we know it. Are you having conversation with growers already about their potential summer spraying needs?
A little bit, yeah. We're still early yet that we're not too nervous about needing to change any plans or anything. I think we'll be able to keep up comfortably there. So we had a lot of conversations this winter around spray plans and just trying to, manage input costs and see what we can do, but we'll see how it rolls here. So
that's what it's about. We're going to have to see how it rolls here before too long. Tyler, before we let you go across your countryside in southern Minnesota there, have you seen much acreage switching? Do you see more growers turning to corn this year than beans, or are most folks on their regular rotation?
Most guys are on their regular rotation. I don't think we saw a major shift, at least in our region here. Guys are pretty comfortable staying on whatever their rotation was, if it's 50-50 or still a little heavier on the corn. But from everybody I've talked to across southern Minnesota with Nutrient, different sales reps and stuff, there didn't sound like any major switches in our region here. So
all right, they are holding the line. Tyler Morgan, crop consultant with Nutrient Ag Solutions, thanks so much for filling us in on the agronomy for your acres this week.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
And folks, you can learn more at nutrientagsolutions.com. Our market conversation this week is brought to you by Farm Futures. Stay up to date on these volatile commodity markets at farmfutures.com. And this week, we're talking with Jim McCormick, a partner at agmarket.net, about what's moving in these commodity markets. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
We've seen the corn market bleed lower this week, old crop corn. Jim, how should farmers be managing their unsold old crop corn bushels?
Well, yeah, we are definitely seeing the market bleed a little bit lower. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are making progress getting this crop in the ground. Remember, we're going to try to get 95.5 million acres in. To do that, we need to get off to a pretty good start. We kind of had a few hiccups early in the southeast, but we made a lot of progress this past week. Old crop corn is bleeding a little bit lower. If you're worried about it, I'd consider maybe some options, because the fact of the matter is this, Mike, the U.S. carryout, projected carryout is still very tight, below 10% stocks of use. The world carryout is very, very tight. Exportable supplies of countries that export grain are something like 15, 20-year lows. So there could be a story if we have any kind of weather problem. The producer that's holding onto that grain right now, he should be looking for basis appreciation, because at this point in time, most producers, they're going to hold back selling the old crop corn until they get a better handle on how this upcoming crop looks, and that may be all the way into pollination.
All right, well, new crop corn, how is basis looking? What are you seeing across the countryside?
Well, like I said, on the old crop corn, it is firming up a little bit right now, plain and simple, because the farmer is holding off. Experts have been holding in there relatively well. New crop's a little bit soft, but it is that way right now. Farmers right now are more concentrating on trying to get this crop in the ground to do any marketing for the new crop, and that's just not to mention the prices. They're really not that all attractive at the moment.
They're not. As we get deeper into the season, there are concerns, of course, about weather, as there are every year. They seem heightened this year. Is that maybe causing some farmers to hold off on their marketing?
There's no doubt about it. If you look at the drought monitor, it is still raging in the western part of the country. We are also seeing the drought percolate back again in Mexico. Mexico's been one of our biggest buyers of corn recently. If that drought continues, that could open the door for even more sales to Mexico, especially if we can get a trade deal with them. But yes, our normal drought risk is around 30% year in, year out. Right now, a lot of the meteorologists are putting it around 60%. So better than 50-50 odds. They will stress, though, it doesn't guarantee. There's a 40% chance that we could get through it. But that uncertainty is enough to give the market a little bit of nervousness, I believe.
All right. If you're making sales now on new crop, would you be re-owning with calls?
I think it's worthwhile re-owning with calls, because, like I said, when you look at the situation we're in right now, it's really kind of interesting how quick we've changed. But with this new crop, carry out could be very big if we get all the acres in and if we have a good crop. But on the other hand, we don't get all the acres in, or the yields fall because this drought does come to fruition. That carryout stays below 1.5 billion, stocks used below 10%. There's a bullish story there.
All right, could see a narrative shift as we get deeper into summer. Jim, the wheat market, is it supportive or is it helping hold corn down at this point in time?
Right now, the wheat market is a little bit of an anchor. More than anything else, we're getting a change in the weather patterns. We are starting to see some rain in parts of the wheat belt. Kansas, Oklahoma are getting rains here the last couple of days. There's more rain in the forecast. Technically, the Kansas City wheat made new lows for the move here this past week. That's kind of ugly. If there is something to keep a little bit positive news for the wheat market, is watch the U.S. dollar. It's trading near 3-year lows. When the dollar gets cheaper, it makes our commodities a little bit more competitively priced.
Do we still have good global demand for U.S. wheat if we're price competitive?
We do. I mean, the reality is we are kind of the dealer of the last resort. Of the big supplier of the wheat market is Russia. So Russia does set the tone. But if our prices get cheap enough, people will come in and buy.
All right. The dollar, as we watch for what factors could move that. Jim, what are you watching in the near term?
Right now, you're just looking at the overall philosophy of the dollar, the bond market. Those are the keys you're looking at right now. There has been a tone, unfortunately, because of the trade barriers that we're seeing, the trade risk, sell America. So they've been selling the dollar, selling the bonds, selling the stock market. That's something we need to be concerned about for the overall macro economy.
All right, lots to watch in this economy, lots of headlines driving the risk. We'll be back with more conversation with Jim McCormick from agmarket.net. Our market segment this week is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up to date on the volatile commodity markets at farmfutures.com. And we're back talking with Jim McCormick, partner at agmarket.net. Jim, looking at the world of soybeans, this is the time of year Brazilian beans start coming to market. Have we seen their exports begin to accelerate yet?
They have begun to accelerate. Our sales have been actually hanging in there pretty good, Mike, but this is the time of year we transition away the world market just because their harvest is just finishing. They've got a lot of beans, so we will be losing market share. That's normal. Normally, what we're watching for on the export side is corn. This is our window to sell corn to the world.
All right. Looking ahead in the world of soybeans, old crop bean prices, we've seen a little bit of a hit, but they've rallied back pretty hard since the trade tariff announcements came on. Where do you see old crop prices going here as we get into summer?
What's really been interesting the last couple of days, we've been trading between the 100-day and the 200-day moving average. They've been finding support at the 100-day, finding resistance at the 200-day. If we can get a close over the 200-day moving average, that will look technically strong. I think that, we got to keep an eye on these beans, though, because the trade war is still going to have huge impact. Remember, China is our biggest buyer of beans. We've lost a lot of market share to China over the years, but they're still going to be the dominating factor. The other storyline is going to be the renewable fuels. The President Trump administration early in the administration was talking a little bit more favorable to renewable fuels. They really haven't said anything recently, so something to keep an eye on that.
All right. As you look ahead to November, pricing, maybe 2026 and beyond. Jim, are there any moves farmers should be making now ahead of the ongoing trade concerns?
Right now, I think, the volatility is a very hard thing right now. It's, anybody who watches the market, watches stock market, it is up, it's down. We are trading tweet to tweet, headline to headline, and a lot of variability. Weather is going to be the key factor. That's the reality. If we do have a weather situation this summer, we have a drought, it's going to affect the corn market, and will have an impact to beans, because remember, we're planting a lot less beans this year because the economics right now say beans aren't profitable. So if we would have a weather situation, that bean crop would be small. You could get a story there. So the flexibility, I think, is the key going into 2025. You need to defend your profits when you have them, because if this trade war does get ugly, remember the last trade war took over 2 years to sign the agreement from the start of it to when it was signed with the Chinese. So this tends to drag out. You need to defend those profits, lock them in when you can, but you also want to leave some flexibility, maybe some options or situation if you're selling cash or using futures to keep that upside open, because like I said, the weather is going to be the real key on where prices are at by the fall.
It certainly is. Jim, let's take a look over at the livestock markets. Cattle have rallied back since their hit earlier this month. Can we keep pressing for new highs here in live cattle?
Right now they are pushing new highs. It's driven by the cash market. The cash market is driven on very tight supply. That's all going to come down to the American consumer, I believe. The reality is this: the supply is tight. We know it's tight, Mike. It's been tight forever. It's consumer handle the pricing. The fact of the matter is these tariffs that we're seeing that have been placed on all these countries, from 10% to 145% of the Chinese, the consumer has not felt that yet. He's going to start feeling that very, very quick. According to big box retailers, within 2 weeks, shelves are going to be empty, prices are going to go up. If that starts to happen, the prices especially start going up, that could pinch the demand for cattle a little bit.
Given that that's the risk out there as we head into peak grilling season, how are you advising those producers who have spent big money to fill those feedlots?
I think you want to defend the pricing. I mean, it's the same situation right now. If you're bullish on the supply, that's fine, but consider maybe an option strategy somewhere to defend the price risk, because the fact of the matter is, a headline could change it all depending on where these trade deals go. I'm trying to be optimistic. I think you've got to be optimistic the president can get the deal done, but you got to be defensive and measure on your profitability when they have the opportunity. And options may be one way to consider. It puts a floor in but leaves the upside open.
And would you be looking mainly through 2025, or would you look at 26 and beyond in the cattle space?
Right now, I think I'd be looking at 2025 right now. I think I'd be a little bit optimistic we're going to get some trade deals done. I think part of those deals will include agriculture being, hey, why don't you buy some U.S. products? So I'd say right now it's more the 2025 to defend the profitability now till we get a clearer picture of these tariffs.
Lots of things to watch as farmers gear up for planting season. Jim McCormick, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us this week.
Thank you.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Well, Greg Solier has been watching the weather around the country. And Greg, out in the Pacific Northwest, what do you expect to see this next week?
Pretty quiet and uneventful. Opportunities to get out there and continue on with spring field work into the Pacific Northwest. No major systems on the maps and charts. Had enough cooling under clear skies and light wind last week. Some of the production areas, the fruit tree areas through the Willamette Valley and Rogue River Basin had a little whimper of frost. We think we will not have to deal with that for this week, with the main boundary of late season cold parked through the Canadian Prairie down to the Black Hills and points east and south. Black Hills on westward, yeah, some late season snow last week. We'll get it again here on this particular weather system early in the week, but again, along the divide and westward, clear sailing with outdoor work in mind. This system will kind of skedaddle down along this boundary here that separates spring warmth over areas of the Intermountain West, Pacific Northwest, versus another little rain snow mix towards the Black Hills, back up through and around Bismarck and points east from there. Of course, farther south in the heart of the warmth last week, boy, the showers and thunderstorms cranked away over sections of Nebraska, Kansas, and points on southward. The old marine layer into position as you would expect for mid to late April. So early morning low clouds, a few sprinkles in through coastal sections, giving way to afternoon sun. Warm through the desert southwest, and a couple of thunderstorms and some shower activity into the high plains areas. Again, had some of that, although light amounts last week, including a little snow into the higher elevations. We'll do it again early on into the week before the next weather system, fairly benign in the desert southwest, moves on through. It'll bring about a little push of some cooler air below 90 degrees in the southwestern sections of the country. Meanwhile, a couple of thunderstorm clusters again in some of the worst drought areas of the plain states. So, Mike, we made some nominal improvement to some of those central and southern high plains areas with regard to dryness and drought over the past week to 10 days.
Northern Corn Belt next week going to see a dry down, or is there more wetness ahead?
There is still more wetness ahead and still a little low from time to time, but some cool air laying out through Big Sky. The Dakotas, the upper Midwest. This boundary here separates summer warmth, as we had from time to time last week, versus a spring feel for the Great Lakes region, and no shortage of moisture again. Showers, a couple of thunderstorms, maybe severe along that I-80, I-70 corridor. Later in the week, still unsettled across parts of the eastern and southern Corn Belt. Some dry time trying to get going into the upper Midwest and back west of the Missouri. Better go of it with outdoor work into the Plain States areas and livestock operations as well. There's some heat through the Rio Grande, couple of showers and thunderstorms across the Delta and in through the lower Mississippi Valley. They continue incredibly wet, although Louisiana making some pretty good strides into the lower Mississippi Valley with soybean planting over the past couple of weeks. Meanwhile, the showers and thunderstorms are back into play here across the Gulf Coast into the deep south and southeast, with some dry time across West Texas and warm, dry weather in the desert Southwest later in the week.
Does the active weather push all the way to the East Coast next week, Greg?
It continues on and through the heart of the Corn Belt as well. And we've had some pockets of outdoor work and planting operations. We made some progress into parts of northern Missouri. There's been some claim of double-digit advance, especially on the bean side of thing, over sections of the western Corn Belt, a little too wet along and south of I-70. But into the northeast of New England, warm, dry weather. Same with parts of the eastern Corn Belt before this windy and wetter weather system, and the separation between springtime here, summer across the Ohio, generates showers and thunderstorms over a wide area of the Mississippi Valley, southeastern sections of the Corn Belt too, with a push of, again, somewhat cooler, drier air out north and west of the Twins as we move on through the late portion of the week. Looks like early spring heat, if you will, and you get it this time of the year into the Delta region, parts of the southern plains versus high pressure, and some recent moisture improvements and drought improvement over the mid-Atlantic region. But for now, it's high pressure and control into the early and middle portions of the week. Meanwhile, through central and south Florida, the scattered showers and thunderstorms, the rainy season trying to get going here, and boy, we need every drop of rain. It is incredibly dry. Some fire from time to time has been the story into the central and southern parts of Florida. Meanwhile, humidity and warmth and scattered showers and thunderstorms across the southeastern parts of the country. Rapid crop growth and development with some 90-degree air into the Carolinas, and this will be an active frontal boundary. Showers and thunderstorms across the lower Mississippi Valley. Again, parts of the Tennessee Valley and southeastern states. Some of those storms, as the week wears on, could grow severe in some locales.
Closed captioning this week is brought to you by Farm Progress. Their team of experts reports on innovative solutions and essential information for your farm business. Visit farmprogress.com to stay updated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Across the country, as we've talked about several times on this episode, the American farmer is preparing to, or maybe just getting started to get that crop in the ground for the 2025 growing season. It won't be too long and they'll be applying additional fertilizer to that crop to keep it growing strong. Fertilizer prices have been moving, nitrogen in particular. Urea at the Port of New Orleans has been climbing in price since January. And according to analysts at StoneX, 2025 marks the third highest fertilizer to corn price ratio in history. Director of Fertilizer at StoneX, Josh Linville, notes that this is expected to continue. Prices are up nearly $130 at that Port of New Orleans for urea so far this year, and that demand is expected to stay strong. One challenge that growers in the field are finding is that it's really tough to get your hands on UAN as a nitrogen source. Instead, some farmers will likely be switching from UAN over to urea, continuing to keep that demand strong. Of course, some other farmers are exploring different methods to get nitrogen into their fields. Logan Woodward at Pivot Bio recently spoke to Max Armstrong about what their company is doing to help farmers harness more nitrogen from a new source.
What we're doing right now is we are currently the only gene-edited nitrogen-fixing microbe on the market. And so you can utilize it along with your normal synthetic fertilizer applications, and you can still get the benefit out of it. So there's a feedback mechanism where it takes a lot of energy to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. And so we've edited those microbes to ultimately turn off that feedback mechanism, and they're going to continually fix nitrogen for that crop and put it right in the rooting zone where the crop needs it and when it needs it the most.
How many seasons have you had this out for producers now?
We've had it since 2018.
A lot of feedback from the producers in that period of time, by all means.
That's exactly right, yes.
What's coming down the pike? Are you guys always looking at new advancements, bringing new things along for growers?
Yeah, so that's a big part of my role. So I do all on-farm trials with pre-commercial products, and so at this point we're demoing a new product here in the 2025 growing season with the hopes to start selling in 2026. So basically what's new about it is there's 2 different microbes in there, so we basically now have 3 different modes of action that can be utilized in a grower's system more efficiently and potentially even in more different types of scenarios.
It must be encouraging to you to get that producer feedback when a grower has had one of these on-farm trials to tell you what they've seen firsthand.
And that's exactly what a big portion of my job is. We want to see the results in the field, but we also want to get that feedback from the growers. Is it going to be easily implemented into their system? And that's a big part of us, is trying to make sure we feasibly provide a product for all the growers across the U.S. to utilize to its full potential. We're the only gene-edited nitrogen-fixing microbes on the market right now, and we're trying to provide solutions for growers to diversify their nitrogen portfolio. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer is important. We need that to help maximize the profits and yields for corn growers in the U.S. But I think there's a potential to be able to replace some of that with our microbes. Ultimately replace some of the more inefficient nitrogen applications in the grower system, and then replace that with biological fixed nitrogen, where I think of us as the third source of nitrogen for a grower system. We have the fertilizer that you apply to the soils and the soils itself. And if one of those lets you down, with our technology, you're able to tap into that third source, being the atmosphere.
Thank you, Logan, for that update. And of course, this spring, as farmers are getting into the field, that labor on the farm is going to be a challenge, and perhaps in 2025, more growers will take a look at autonomous technology. Recently, I had the chance to sit down with Darren Havens at John Deere, and we talked about what's to come from an autonomy standpoint from their company.
First off, what we have is autonomous tillage is the exciting thing that we're introducing. We talked about it at our Consumer Electronics Show around many different products we have, but here we're talking about how we can make our farmers' lives easier with more productivity, particularly whenever we have labor challenges or labor shortages, or have tight windows to get that tillage job done, and particularly in the fall season. So behind us is a 9RX, which is autonomous ready, coming out of the factory. That's our opportunity, one, to get this technology out into our customers' hands and demonstrate how this can actually help them in their operation.
So that will be out this year for growers in the 25 season?
That is correct. So we are shipping out of the factory, autonomous ready. We have limited availability of this feature, though, as we continue to evolve the technology. But we're also building for the future. So in many cases, as we've gone over this technology journey, we've made products ready. And that's the case with many of our tractors coming out. So when the customer's ready, we'll be ready.
And I understand with that technology growth here at John Deere, you've also been able to add that technology to older model tractors and retrofit. Is that an option that farmers are pursuing this year?
Yes, that is the case. Not only on autonomy, but in a number of other product categories. When we introduce the new technology, we know not everybody's a new equipment buyer. So our goal is to bring that technology to existing products across each of the production steps that they have.
That's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about what's to come. We got a growing season ahead of us. We know weather windows are going to be tight from time to time. Can you fill us in on what John Deere is doing to help farmers be more efficient in those tight windows?
Yeah, sure. It kind of relates back to that upgrade capability. So one of the things that we're trying to do is with our Precision Tech or Precision Ag Essentials is bring some of that new technology to help them be more effective, more productive, more efficient in their operations. And that's anything from the tilling, to the planting, the spraying, and the harvesting. And across our booth today, we've got a number of technologies that, one, are coming out of the factory, but are also upgradable for your current equipment.
Thank you, Darren. That upgradability is key. I've heard from many growers this year looking at tighter margins, thinking that maybe it's just a year to upgrade their old equipment. Well, folks, stick with us. We'll have more to come on This Week in Agribusiness, including a look at Cargill's Innovation Center, set in sunny Fort Collins, Colorado. Leave it here. We'll be back with more right after this.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. As farmers head into the field for the 2025 growing season, crop protection companies are reminding them to utilize their tools with the best care and practices. Joining me now to talk about the Be Sure campaign is Daryl Armstrong. He's on the crop protection stewardship team at Bayer Crop Science. And Daryl, thanks for joining us this week.
It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to having a visit on this topic.
Well, tell me a little bit about this year's Be Sure campaign. What are the goals?
Yeah, so the goals are really to help protect pollinators as our customers and farmers go into the growing season and prepare to protect their crops against pests. But they also need to be protecting pollinators against any potential harm that they may see from the products that they're using. So the Be Sure campaign is there to help remind growers as they're using the products that there are simple steps that they can take to protect these pollinators that are so important to us.
Well, give us a few. For applicators who are getting ready to head into the field, what would you recommend to keep those pollinators safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the biggest or the first thing is read the label. The label is on every product that they're going to be using. It can change from year to year, so it's important to always read the label that's on the container. It's always being updated to ensure that it's got the most current and relevant information. But it also provides information on how to use the product safely for both the operator, but also for pollinators. And there will be specific sections in those labels to talk about pollinator protection. Things that can be done are things like buffer distances, making sure that there's a space between where the crop that's being protected is being sprayed and the pollinators may have habitat. The use rates, ensuring that there's proper use rates, the environmental conditions, so thinking about things like temperature, wind speed, other environmental conditions like humidity that may impact how those products perform, as well as how they may impact off-target species like pollinators.
Absolutely, and at times you can also get technical advice, novel size, droplet size, all of that would also be on the label as well, wouldn't it?
Correct. So yeah, things like droplet size and pressure in your sprayer and those types of things are all available on the label and will help ensure that you have an on-target application in your field where the pest is you need to protect against is, and making sure that it doesn't go into areas where you don't want it, where pollinator habitat may exist.
And of course, we want to keep pollinators safe, we want to keep wildlife safe, but most importantly, perhaps we want to keep ourselves safe using some of these crop protection inputs. What are some good pieces of advice you've got for growers to stay safe this season?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, back to that label, it's really got all the information that a grower is going to need to ensure that they have that safe environment for themselves. So it'll talk about things like personal protective equipment they should be wearing, whether that's eye protection, hand protection, coveralls, those types of things, as well as how to handle material that's left over. So if you've got containers at the end of the application season, you need to rinse those out and properly dispose of it. It'll provide you guidance and direction on that as well.
Absolutely. Be sure to read those labels. If we've got folks who want to learn more about this topic, Daryl, where would you send them for information?
So Growing Matters is, we have a website, so growingmatters.org at /Be Sure. And so it will give you a good connection point to the information I've talked about and more.
Thank you so much. That's Daryl Armstrong on the Crop Protection Stewardship Team at Bayer Crop Science. Lots to watch in the year ahead.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier returns now with his extended farm weather forecast for the country.
Earlier in the program, Greg mentioned some active weather in the forecast next week. Greg, who's going to see the activity next week?
Same spots, same places. The haves get more, the have-nots get some more as well. But I tell you, enjoy it while you may, and even if it gets in the way of field work and planting operations with time, we'll get deeper into the spring and summertime season across parts of initially the western Corn Belt and the Plains and wonder where the next organized rains will come from. So enjoy this, and it's not necessarily a great forecast with some additional flooding concerns down south of the Missouri towards the Ozarks. Good swath of 1 to 2 inch rainfall here, probably spreading north with time. Late season snow from the Sioux back to the Black Hills of the Pacific Northwest. Nothing in the desert Southwest, and there will be some significant moisture and good coverages, but 1/4 to 1/2 inch later in the week into the northeastern part of the country. So once again, the heartland active and moisture laden.
All right, Greg, as you look out to the week of May 5th, what's your temperature outlook?
Outlook right now shows some pretty good warmth, and here is the early indication of the summer hot ridge over the southwestern reaches of the country. Some of that heat beginning to propagate northward. Note how the jet stream pattern now beginning to build northward, sliding east-southeast over the eastern portions of the country, kind of putting a bottleneck on any real cold air intrusion for now. And an expansion of dry time in the Pacific Northwest and some of the drought areas of the northern and central plains should get some pretty rapid advance on field work and planting operations. Again, as we talked about initially, west-northwest and then building east-southeast with time. Above average moisture over the deep south, up and down the eastern seaboard. Still some snow across parts of the southeastern Canadian prairie.
All right, for the week of May 12th, does that hot ridge stick around?
It certainly does, and here it is, kind of flattening out a little bit over the western reaches of the country across the Gulf Coast. We do get a lobe of cool air to build on in, so as you would expect, a little buckling of the jet stream pattern, the trough, if you will, sliding on southward. So the moisture picks up. Enjoy it while you may. Pacific Northwest, big sky, the northern plains, active weather pattern and field work delays again, or ongoing eastern and southern Corn Belt into the mid-Atlantic region. The dry time builds back into the southern plains and southwestern states.
Warmth still a risk on the week of May 19th?
The heat builds back in, and I think it's here to last. It moves up towards the Black Hills, back into the southern valleys of California to about or east of the Missouri. Cool air lobed across the northeastern part of the country. Temperatures about normal much of the Midwest. And here comes the expanding opportunities for field work, but the start of the dryness and drought pattern across the western half of the country is still active over much of the eastern Corn Belt.
Our Farm Progress Update is sponsored by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of highly effective and efficient high-speed discs and land rollers. Visit brandt.ca for more. This week, we're getting a planting update on the showgrounds over at the Farm Progress site in Decatur, Illinois from Matt Youngman. He's the events manager here at the Farm Progress Show. And Matt, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Glad to be with you, Mike.
Fill us in. How are the grounds looking over at Farm Progress Show in Decatur? You got everything in the ground?
Yeah, we were just there last week. Everything looks tremendous. We work with 3 different host farmers that surround the show site there, and by Thursday of last week, they were all in the field, and within about 24 hours, got all the corn in the ground. We plant obviously a really early hybrid and hope to get it in the ground good and early, and we've gotten that accomplished this year, which kind of generally lowers the tension and the worry in spring. So we're set up for a great Farm Progress Show with great field demonstrations.
That's fantastic. You talk about the farmers getting the crop in. What is the crop mix on the show site at Decatur, Matt?
So it's pretty much for the field demonstrations, it's all corn. We plant a really early hybrid, and then we'll pick about half of it off to get the new combines tuned up before the show, and then we'll run the harvesting demonstrations and the tillage demonstrations in the afternoons each day. And meanwhile, there are ride and drives and precision demos and all of the other activities occurring right there by tram loading. So just kind of a day full of activity out there in the field to couple with all the activity in the static area.
There is so much activity going on. Before we move on to what's happening on the grounds themselves, Matt, do you guys do much tillage on the ground before the corn goes in?
Yeah, so it kind of, we leave that to the host farmers. So some of this is corn on corn that's had quite a bit of tillage, and then some of it is corn on soybeans, and that's just got a little bit. Great partnership from FS to get the anhydrous down ahead of the show and all the other inputs that are needed. So yeah, there's kind of a mixed bag of all the different tillage that happens ahead of the show, ahead of the planting, in order to get things in shape.
Just like on farms across the country. Matt, you mentioned you've got some changes on the site. What's going to be different in 2025 versus the last time we were in Decatur in 2023?
Well, there's a lot of things moving around. That's filling up as we speak. A couple things that are kind of exciting. We've got companies putting in new infrastructure. GSI is putting up a new grain facility for demonstration purposes, and then a lot of companies that are doing ride and drive activities, whether it's tire companies or a lot of the side-by-side companies. Polaris, Can-Am, Kawasaki, they're all planning some pretty extensive ride and drive activities inside the fence for folks to get behind the wheel and experience some of these new machines that they're unveiling. That's
fantastic. Matt, of course, Farm Progress Show will be here before we know it. What are the dates for this year's event?
August 26th, 27th, 28th. Looking forward to seeing everybody the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before Labor Day.
Mark those calendars. Matt Youngman, thanks for joining us this week.
Now on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. This weekend at Max's Tractor Shed, tractor detectives are on my mind. Those folks who go to great lengths to find the stories of tractors, especially very unusual ones. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Lundell Plastics. Many years ago, our friend Vance Lundell knew there had to be a better way. So he started Lundell Plastics, making those poly products to serve farmers across the country. LundellPlastics.com. Well, there are often great stories behind tractors if you can dig enough, make all of the connections, and pull out some of the history. Sherry Schaefer, publisher of Oliver Heritage Magazine, has done just that. Well, yes, take a look at this Oliver tractor. I guess it's an Oliver. She recently got confirmation that her Oliver Super 77 was an experimental build. Doesn't look like a typical Oliver, does it? Well, there was a cooperative effort in the mid-50s between Oliver of Charles City, Iowa, and General Motors in Detroit. Yeah, those companies made a kind of an interesting array of products back in the days. Charles City, Iowa was Oliver Company. I think even made things like sewing machines and bicycles. General Motors, in addition to cars, made locomotives. Well, Sherry's sleuthing trail took her through Iowa, Michigan, and other states, and in the June-July issue of Oliver Heritage, she'll lay out a very interesting story about an experimental build, a cooperation between those two companies. Mark Stock is here every weekend. He joins us right now from Big Iron Auctions.
Well, hello, Max. Our April 30th auction on Big Iron features over 1,200 items. Timothy Nelson is retiring from Waverly, South Dakota. They'll sell a 2021 Case IH 500T Precision Disc Drill, 2012 Kenworth T660 Day Cab Semi-Truck Tractor, an Early Riser 1250 12-row 30 planter, Case IH Magnum 340 Mechanical Front Tractor, Case IH Magnum 235 Mechanical Front Tractor, Case IH 5220A Mechanical Front Tractor with a loader, and there's a John Deere 9510 Combine. And the Mark Newman auction by Julesburg, Colorado features a 2020 year model John Deere 8R 370 Mechanical Front Tractor, an Orthman pull-type scraper, John Deere 9560 RT Track Tractor, John Deere GPS equipment, seed tenders, pivot track closers, chemigation units, Buffalo 16-row 30 cultivator. Domson Incorporated will retire with 118 items featuring a Caterpillar 140M VHP motor grader, John Deere 644K wheel loader, Aztec trenchers, Caterpillar 345BL Series 2 excavator. All these items, Max, sell on Wednesday, April 30th on BigIron.com.
Our FFA chapter tribute is brought to you by Geringoff. Check out the new XFR 50 Draper with 3 times more flexibility than its closest competitor at Geringoff.com. Geringoff, proudly built in the American heartland. We're getting to know the National FFA Officer Team, and this week, Abigail Jacobson joins us. She's serving as the Western Region Vice President. Abigail, thanks for speaking with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your background. Did you grow up in a farm family?
I did not actually grow up in production agriculture, but I started showing dressage horses at the age of 7 years old and fell in love with the country lifestyle, animal science, all of that. And I learned that if I joined an ag class my freshman year of high school, I could show a sheep. And in my head, I figured a 1,200-pound horse, 150-pound sheep. How different could it be? The answer is very different, but fortunately for me, that was the avenue that got me involved in agriculture and in FFA and has really dictated my future life plans.
Fantastic. And of course, you had the chance to serve on leadership, serving as California's president of the FFA, and now you're on the national officer team. How big is the Western region?
The Western region is pretty unique in that it doesn't have the largest number of states, actually a relatively small number of states compared to the rest of the other regions, but we've got a large membership because we have states like California and Texas who are the top 2 leading states of membership in our organization. So it's kind of unique in its size. It depends what perspective you're looking at.
Do you spend a lot of your time this year traveling to meet with members in different states?
Oh yes, we're on the road for approximately 300 days of the year, and fortunately we get the chance to travel the entire country. So I spend a little bit of time in the Western region, get to experience all parts of the country as well.
That is fantastic. Now, as you look forward after your term of service is up, do you hope to stay in agriculture?
Yes, I'm currently pursuing an animal science degree at Chico State University with the plan to stay on the pre-veterinary track and serve as a large animal veterinarian in Northern California.
Fantastic. We need more large animal veterinarians. Abigail, we wish you the best of luck. Thanks for talking with us this week.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by AGI, supporting your expertise with industry-leading grain handling, storage, conditioning, and monitoring solutions. AGI, we're right there with you. This time of year, a lot of farmers are handling chemicals as they prepare to head out into the field. Chad Colby's been out around the country and he found some chemical handling made easy.
If you love farmer innovation, you're going to love this tech segment. I'm here in Central Illinois at Matt Fose's farm. Matt, this building we're in, this was an old storage shed that over the last couple years, you've put a little, I would say, farmer ingenuity into it. Talk a little bit about what you've done here.
So as time has gone on, needs change. And so I was going to the retailer to get hot loads. And because of convenience, deciding when I wanted to spray, I wanted to have my own mixing facilities. And so I put this in and tried to develop it the way I want it to be set up for efficiency and on a budget.
So talk a little bit about what you did here.
The two big 5,000 gallon tanks are for starter fertilizer or 32 later in the season. Aside from that, it's all plumbed into a pump that I already had. So it will go into the inductor, which I can measure volumetrically with the gallons, or I set it on a platform scale that I got off of Amazon so that I could weigh out things if it was smaller quantities and keep that accuracy without breaking the bank.
One thing I noticed too is kind of from a safety standpoint, it's nice to have everything inside. I noticed you've got some systems built in the floor in case you have a problem, it's all contained.
Yeah, so the center portion of this building, the cement wasn't here a year ago. So we decided, hey, if we're going to do this, I want to be able to catch that whoops that happens all the time. And so I put a 275-gallon sump in the floor. Everything's drained to it. And that way, if there's an issue, the yard is fine, the animals are fine, things like that.
Well, and I love the convenience of loading inside. We've all done that, whether you're fighting wind or rain or even disposal of jugs and all the stuff that happens. What a convenience to do this inside.
Yeah, inside is so much more controlled environment. Everything works as it should. If a storm comes up, you get everything inside and nothing gets washed off into the yard and everything stays good.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you showing this little bit of farmer innovation. It's certainly got to make things a lot easier. I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad, for that update on farmer innovation. Well, folks, stick around. We're going to talk about innovation at the crop level when we come back on This Week in Agribusiness. Developing that next generation of crop technologies requires a team of experts, and it's no small task at all. Recently, I had the chance to tour Cargill's Innovation Center in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I spoke with its director, Lyle DePau, about why the facility exists.
So this facility is Cargill's Crop Innovation Center. We've been here since late 60s. This was originally set up as a wheat breeding station a long time ago. It's gone through many iterations, doing wheat, sunflowers. Eventually it became a hybrid canola breeding center for a number of years. And today its purpose is to work on novel crops, novel traits for the purpose of creating new food, new innovations for our customers here in North America and around the world.
Could you give us a few examples of some of the novel crops or novel traits that you've researched here in this facility?
Absolutely. So some of the crops that are currently in lab today, we're working on novel fuel crops like camelina, or winter camelina and winter pennycress. We are working on novel sunflowers for our colleagues in Europe. We are working on stevia, high-intensity sweeteners, and again, looking at deploying that around the world. So a very wide, diverse set of crops.
It is very, very diverse. It's a diverse operation around here. Lyle, could you tell us about the staffers? Who is working here? Are you scientists? Are you researchers? Or what's it look like?
So at this location, we have almost 30 scientists that are working on a number of different crops. They range from chemists to biologists. We have greenhouse personnel. We just have a wide, diverse number of scientists that work here. I'm located in the oil processing lab. This is a lab where our oil processing or chemists come and study how to process down soft seeds into their components of oil and meal. So a very wide, diverse set of scientists that we work with here at the Crop Innovation Center.
Why is the Crop Innovation Center here in Fort Collins, Colorado? I mean, what's the advantage of being here with this space specifically?
Actually, we get about 300 days of sunshine every single year. So when you're running a lot of greenhouses, when you're doing a lot of plant growth, it's really beneficial for us to be able to grow in this kind of an environment.
As you're thinking about finding those novel plants, finding those novel traits, does the impetus for that come generally from Cargill, curiosity, or is it coming from outside third parties looking for solutions to challenges they're facing?
So we don't have a lock on all of the good ideas. It's important for us to engage with researchers around the world. They might be universities, they might be startups. We talk a lot with our customers. We talk with farmers, all about what are the emerging trends, what are the emerging challenges that our customers are being faced with. We take those good ideas, we try and distill them down into what are the appropriate targets that we want to work on, and these targets might be in the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 15 years, depending on the level of intensity that's required when it comes to biology. So yeah, we look to all sources for the next generation of ideas.
Our thanks to Cargill for the opportunity to tour that innovation center there in Fort Collins. Fascinating conversations with the researchers and with Lyle. So we certainly appreciate their time and look forward to those next level of innovations. Thank you for catching us here this week. Be sure to join us next time right here for This Week in Agribusiness. This Week in Agribusiness is recorded in the Strauss Studios. For more than 70 years and 3 generations, Strauss has been manufacturing high-performance, German-engineered workwear, work boots, and safety equipment. Prepare for the next growing season at Strauss.com.
This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.